Good morning, this is Mary, you're on Mary Reads, and this video is going to be a 3 books in 3 days vlog. I'm going to try reading a book each day in the next 3 days and take you with me, let you know about how the reading is going, if I like the book or maybe not. I will be doing some other tasks, like I have an avocado growing that I want to change the water for. There are a couple of places I'll need to go to, but mostly, of course, it's going to be reading. And I'm going to be showing the book that I'm reading next each new day. So today I'm only going to show the first book, and it's going to be A Man Called Uwe. I wanted to read this book in February, but I wasn't able to. I couldn't find it on the Kindle. I probably just didn't look hard enough. And then my husband and I went to the library and to open the membership, and I saw a whole shelf with Backman, and I was so excited. I grabbed a couple books right away, and this is one of them, and I'm gonna start reading it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon. So I'm like 40 pages in, and I wanted to give a quick update. I'm really enjoying the book so far, and it's written in like a small stories manner. We find out more about Uwe with each little chapter, but they are written in a way that for me looks like it's a complete little story. So, of course, you understand the full context when you're reading all of the book, but at least for now, I feel like if you read a small separate story, you will kind of get the idea. You will understand that this is a grumpy man, he's unhappy about a lot of different things. And I feel like for now, it feels like you can read each chapter separately. And it's very interesting that we see Uwe as this grumpy old man who is angry with everything, who doesn't like his neighbors, who only sees bad things. And it feels like, okay, this is the person nobody will ever like, and this is the person probably I at some point didn't like. I saw it somewhere and I didn't like him. But then you get into his life a little bit more and you start understanding him more, and you feel like he's still a human. He still has feelings. He still has his thoughts and ideas. And we find out pretty soon in the book, and I think you can even get it from like reading the summary. His wife passes away and he now lives alone. And he's very sad about this fact because she was the only color he had in life. She was the only happiness he had. And you can see him as a human more in that moment. Like you can feel his sadness, you can feel his loneliness. And apparently his mother also passes away when he's very little. He's like 6 or 7. And this is also a big thing for him. And she passes away because she was working at a chemical lab, and people didn't know about air safety back then, so she smelled all the fumes, all the chemicals, plus she was smoking, so I assume it was some lung disease that she died from. And it's very interesting because I've heard a similar story about people like deciding to change careers because they know that chemicals are not good, and even though they liked chemistry, they decided they're gonna stay away from the profession. Of course, it was like 30 years ago, not today. I was talking to like older people. But it's very interesting how something that's so obvious to you now wasn't obvious to people 50 years ago, and this is not that long of a time. It's very, very interesting. I'm really enjoying the book so far, and there are a lot of these little cute, interesting moments that I notice. So I'm going to continue reading and keep you posted. I'm about 100 pages in, and the book is becoming more and more interesting and entertaining. We start finding out more about Uwe's life in the past and why he became the way he is. And there are a lot of sad moments because you just see the injustices, you see the unfairness of the world, you see how Uwe is trying to do something good, but he just gets hit constantly with these bad people. And I can't tell a lot about the plot just because it's like these many little stories that there are no like spoiler scenes, but if you start telling about these little stories, they in themselves will become a spoiler. So let's just say he's a good man who is trying to make the world work, who is trying to make the world fair, who wants people to be good to each other and thoughtful, and he just wants everybody to have morals. And he just gets hit with a lot of these people who actually don't care about anything, who are finding excuses rather than reasons to get better, who are just being reckless and unfair and mean and who lie. And he's kind of growing a shell that will protect him from all of those bad people. And it's very interesting to see this transformation of a good man into somebody like Uwe in the present. And he also meets this family and he starts interacting with them more, and he's trying to push them away, but the wife is just consistently coming back because she doesn't get offended. She knows that there is a good man inside of Uwe, and she's trying to bring it out. And I feel like he's becoming already more and more humane, more and more emotional, even though he's still trying to get away from all these emotions, even though he's trying to stay like grumpy and angry and separated from everybody else. He's starting to slowly change. We meet some other neighbors and we see their stories and how they are connected to Uwe and his life. And it's a very, very cozy tale because I love stories where you have just neighbors talking, being connected somehow, being friends. And I like how you have this like little world separated from everything else. And this is what I'm getting from this book. And I'm enjoying it a lot. I hope it's gonna stay that way. Good morning. It's actually been 2 days, not one. I read the book and it was a little bit too much for me for one day. It was a little over 300 pages and I just wasn't able to read it in one day. I loved the book. I finished it yesterday evening. I cried a little bit. I laughed. It was a great journey. And it's a little bit sad. I would say that the ending is expectable, predictable, but still very, very sad. And I just couldn't stop crying for some time. I'm very happy I took this book for this marathon still, even though it took me 2 days, not one. I really want to watch a movie now. I know that there is an American Sweden made movie, so I think they partnered on this one and made a movie together with Tom Hanks, if I'm not mistaken. So I really want to watch that one. And yeah, it was an amazing book. I'm very, very happy I finally read it, and it definitely gets like 10 out of 10 from me. And mostly reviews for this book are very good, and I'm very happy about that because the story is really very kind and very sweet and warm. As for the second book, I was planning on getting another Backman book. I wanted to do Brit Marie Was Here, but that book is about the same number of pages as A Man Called Uwe, so I decided that again I will spend 2 days reading it, and I really don't feel like wasting 2 days on each book, because, well, the whole point of marathon is to read one book in a day. So I decided to take No Longer Human. I already talked about this book in the book haul, and I really hope the book is going to be pretty easy to read. So I'm hoping that the language is going to be pretty easy, not because I'm just not good at understanding longer, harder words, but because I just don't feel like reading anything super deep and hard, as this is the book that I need to read in one day. So I'm really hoping to get some feelings, some emotions from the character, maybe some philosophical views, but written in a way that will resemble the way people are thinking. So the way people usually think and talk, not in a very like complicated, weird language. And I highly doubt it's going to end up being an easy book, but let's try. I want to try. It's 176 pages, so hopefully it's going to take me less time than the first one. And I already talked about the plot again in the book haul, but for those who didn't watch, this book is talking about a man who has always been bullied through his life, who didn't understand other people. So he was bullied as a kid, that later in his life, when he was an adult, led to an attempt to finish his life. But he didn't succeed, so he continues living. He's trying to become quote-unquote normal, but he just doesn't understand other people. He's not like everybody else, and he kind of has to experience those feelings. He have to overcome them and start kind of leading the normal life. So yeah, I will connect again when I'm at like 30 to 40 pages to tell a little bit more about the book. And today is actually March 8th, and this is an International Women's Day. So my friend and I are celebrating, and I'm meeting her today. I really wanted to give her like a little gift, so I'm thinking about buying something, and I think I'll take you with me for that. And we'll choose the gift together. Nothing special, probably just like candy or chocolate, but just something nice. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. So I read the first part, that's like the first 40 pages, and I'm actually very much enjoying the book. It's a little bit weird, just I think as a lot of Japanese authors are. They write in a slightly different way than Europeans do, or maybe a very different way. And I think this might be my first like a novel by a Japanese author. And I really like the way the main character sees the world. So we see it through his eyes, and he is this kid. So the first part is about him being the kid, the second one is about him being a young man, and the third one is about him being an older person, if I understand it correctly. And I read the part where he's a kid, and he just doesn't understand people. He doesn't understand the world. So he says that he never feels hunger because whenever he comes from school, his parents say, "Oh, you're probably very hungry. We know how hungry kids usually are when they get back from school." And he says, "Yeah, sure, I'm hungry," even though he like doesn't experience hunger. He just eats because he doesn't want his family to feel bad, and he doesn't actually enjoy having meals because he only is enjoying something like actually interesting, something actually unusual, and these usual simple meals just don't do anything for him, and he doesn't understand how people can enjoy that. Or when his dad is going away on like a business trip and he asks his kids what to bring them, our main character doesn't really know what he wants because he doesn't really want anything. And he sees that his dad really wants to give him this one present. So he sneaks at night and writes down in his dad's notebook, where he keeps all the lists of gifts. He writes this gift down just because he knows that it will make his dad feel better, but not him, so he doesn't really need the gift. And he decides to be this like clown kind of guy who makes everybody laugh, who is funny, who makes everybody feel good. And he just doesn't really, I feel like he doesn't see who he actually is. I feel like he is trying to be nice for others, but he doesn't really understand what he personally wants. Maybe he just doesn't want anything, but it's kind of hard to understand. So I feel like he just at this point doesn't know what he wants, who he is. And he seems like a robot to me in a lot of cases, because he doesn't understand people. He doesn't understand why they live the way they live, and something that for us looks normal, like eating 3 times a day, he questions, and he sees from a purely like not even rational, I can't say rational, but from this robotic point of view, like it's not about him, like he's not a human and he's looking at humans, trying to like understand the way they act. It feels like he's in a lab and doing an experiment, just looking at people and trying to see what they're like, and trying to distinguish their character traits, their habits, their rituals. It's a very weird book, but so far it's been extremely interesting, and it's very easy to read. I noticed sometimes that I'm going through like sentences too fast, and I wanted to come back and just read a little bit slower to get a better understanding and to like taste the language. So far I'm very happy about the book. Good morning. It's a new day and I finished No Longer Human. I probably should have connected a little bit earlier when I was at like 100 pages, but I was just so into the story that I couldn't stop reading. It was amazing. I was so surprised that I loved this book so much. I did not expect that I will. In this story, we follow the life of our main character. And the last time I turned the camera on, I talked about his childhood. And so later in the second part, we see him growing up a little bit. He goes to university, he starts drawing, he understands his real passion and what he actually likes. And we feel like he found himself finally, but then he goes through drinking and smoking and seeing a lot of women, and this kind of starts ruining him. He tries to end his life, but it's not successful, and his whole family is very angry with him because apparently trying to end your life is a crime, and he was arrested for it, and his whole family just abandons him and says that that's it, you're not a part of our family anymore. And he starts living his life. He was used to being in a good environment because his family is so rich, but he himself can start earning money. He has something, but that's not enough, and we just see him losing control of his life. We see how he doesn't know where to go in life, what he needs to do, and he becomes more and more addicted to alcohol and then to some other substances. And it's just very sad to see this like a black hole that drags life out of him. It was an amazing book, and I'm surprised that in 170 pages the author was able to do such an amazing job explaining emotions and feelings of the character. And we don't really get dialogues because this book is like it's written as notebooks of this man, and we mostly see his thoughts, his reflections on what happened to him, so we barely get any dialogues. So it's a very, very slow-paced book, and we start feeling what the character feels. It's not a very eventful story, but it just shows us these little bits of his soul and how he feels and what he thinks about his life, and how with not even years, but like every day he becomes more and more lost. And yeah, this is becoming probably one of my best books for 2024, and I'm definitely going to be reading it again and recommending it to others. As for the book I'm going to be reading today, it's going to be Lady Audley's Secret. I have this book in my Kindle, so unfortunately I'm not going to be able to show like the actual physical copy. But why did I decide to read this book? It's a little long, so it's going to be a challenge to read it in a day. But it's in my March plans, and because of the library, going to the library and getting all the books there, and because of this marathon where I had to choose books based on their volume rather than what I actually planned for March, I'm a little bit behind on my March plans. And so I decided that reading Lady Audley's Secret is going to be good for my reading plans. So I'm going to start that. That is a Victorian novel. I already talked about it in the March reading plans. So if you haven't watched that video, you can go there and see what other books I'm reading this month. I will link it down below. And I just love the summary of the book. So we are going to be following this family and a life of this young woman who married a widower, Mr. Audley. So she now became Lady Audley, and nobody knows anything about her past. And so when her step nephew finds out that his friend is missing, he decides to start looking into the story, and he becomes like a detective. And he starts uncovering secrets that newlywed Lady Audley was trying to hide, and we find out more about her life, about her secrets. And this is supposed to be a very, very interesting and mysterious book. I'm very excited, and I really hope I'm gonna like it. So as for the other plans, we are going to go on a walk and try to go into a little tea house that we have pretty close to our place. So it's hopefully going to be nice. So I read the first 6 chapters and kind of have an idea about what's going on. So in the first chapter we meet Lady Audley, and we find out how she married Mr. Audley. We find out that she was first a teacher for doctors' kids, and then when Mr. Audley met her, he fell in love, and asked her to marry him, which she did because she used to be poor. Her whole life she lived in poverty, and then finally she married this super rich man. But she did tell him that, well, I don't really love you. I like you, but I don't love you. And then in the second chapter, we meet this man, George Talboys, who goes from Australia to back to England, and he's telling a story of his life. So they're on a ship, and he meets this woman who's also going to England, and he tells her the story of his life. And he says that he was very poor, and he had a wife and a kid, and one day he left them and just left a note that he's going to Australia to find gold. And it's been 3 years. He found gold, he got a lot of money for it, and he's finally coming back to England. And when he comes, he finds out that his wife passed away, like literally 2 days before he came back. And he's grieving, he just can't find a place for himself, and he goes to the place where his son and his grandfather, his wife's dad, live. And he meets them, and the grandfather doesn't look very upset about what happened. And the lady they live with gives George Talboys a piece of his wife's hair, which is straight, and he tells her, you know, my wife's hair used to be curly, and she's like, oh well, that's what sickness did to her. And between all that, like different hair and the grandfather not being super worried, I feel like Lady Audley might be his wife, especially because we also get this scene where Lady Audley's maid opens her jewelry box, and there's this secret little pocket where she finds a kid's shoe and a piece of kid's hair, which I think might be her son's hair and a shoe. And I have a feeling that Lady Audley, previously Lucy Graham, is George Talboys' wife. I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of the idea that I got. I'm going to continue reading, and I will find out more. Another interesting thing that I thought was very weird. So George Talboys comes to see his son, and the first question he asks him is, do you love me? Which is very weird because his son was like an infant when he left, and he just comes and asks if this boy loves him. So for the boy, it's this weird random guy coming, and instead of taking care of the son, taking him with himself and raising him, he decides that he will leave his son with his friend, Robert Audley, who is Mr. Audley's cousin, nephew. And that was so weird for me because you're his father. He's the son of your deceased wife who you loved more than anything. How come do you want to leave your son to your friend and leave? Because he wanted to leave and go to like Australia again to continue working and finding gold. And why do you decide to leave your son like this? Especially because you're asking if your son loves you. If you want your son to love you, then raise him, you know? You can't just leave him like that. I thought that was extremely weird and not nice, not very fatherly. But I feel like in the end he will raise his son. But again, this is just my feeling. I got it from like a couple paragraphs in the book, so I might be completely wrong. I'll continue reading and keep you posted. Good morning, it's the next day and I'm almost done with the book. There's just a little bit left. I started reading a little bit late yesterday, so I'm finishing this morning, but I think I'm still going to be able to finish it in a 24-hour span. So I'm kind of, I think I'm doing pretty well with that. So somebody's drilling. Okay. So what's been happening so far? I'm going to try to avoid any spoilers because the novel is actually very interesting, and if you like Victorian novels, you should absolutely read this one. So George Talboys, the character that we meet in the second chapter, who I talked about earlier, he disappears and nobody knows where he went and what happened to him. So Robert Audley, his friend, the nephew of Mr. Audley, decides to start looking for him. And he gets a bunch of clues and he starts suspecting Lady Audley. He thinks that she's somehow connected to his disappearance. We don't know how, but he's sure that she somehow is connected to George Talboys' life. So he kind of starts his investigation by reading some documents, like reading his books, trying to find his letters, and see if there is any connection between Talboys and Mrs. Audley. And Mrs. Audley herself is very, very annoying for me now because I liked her in the beginning. She looked like this very beautiful young lady who worked as a teacher, who was great at playing music, at drawing. She was always very happy about everything. She was always in a good mood. She was laughing. She was this like a little kind of sunbeam, you know, and everybody loves her. But the more I read about her, the more I see these kind of bad qualities of hers that she's trying to hide. She's manipulative. She doesn't care about other people. She just wants things her way, and she gets them just because people like her and they can't say no to her. Or she's been nice to them and now they owe her something. So yeah, so far it's a very, very interesting novel. It's not as suspenseful as, let's say, Sherlock Holmes, but there is an interesting case. We're trying to see what exactly is going on. And yeah, I'm very happy with what I'm reading. And I have my suspicions, yes, but I don't know if they are true because there is some weird nuances that don't work with my theory. And yeah, I'm very interested in how it's gonna turn out in the end. Okay, so I finished Lady Audley's Secret, and on this my marathon finishes. It took me a little bit longer time than I expected, but I think it was still great. I was able to kind of get back to the reading plans because I was a little bit behind. And I think it was a great challenge for me. It was a little bit hard because I'm usually a slow reader, but it was still an amazing challenge, and I'm very happy that I did that. So a little bit about Lady Audley's Secret. I was just mesmerized by the novel. I loved it so much. It's very different from the Victorian novels I'm used to. Well, first of all, because we have a mystery. Second of all, we have this like super dark secret, and you keep revealing more and more details that are even scarier. And you thought, okay, I already know the scariest part, but you reveal even scarier parts. And one big thing is that it's pretty easy to know what happened, like from the first half of the book. Definitely you will know what's going on, and in this case it's not important, let me rephrase it, not that important what the ending is gonna be, though it's of course very important. I think it's more important how the investigation goes. We follow this man, Robert Audley, and we see him uncovering more and more, and you find out more and more about the story with that. So for me, it felt like the most important part is us following him in his investigation, and the ending, of course, what happened was important, but it was less important than this whole story that led to this ending. I loved the novel I absolutely loved the novel. I saw that the grade for it is like 3.9 stars, which is not super bad, but I expected it would be better. I thought that people would love it as much as I did. And yeah, I think out of all three books that I read, my favorite would have to be Lady Audley. I can't show it now because again, I was reading it on the Kindle. But yeah, I had a great time reading it. I loved all three of the books, but this Victorian novel was my favorite. Just because I'm impartial to Victorian novels, and this was just such an amazing and interesting example of it that I can't not talk about it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was probably a little bit long, but yeah, I hope you liked any of these books and you are interested in reading them now. Let me know if you already read these books. Please subscribe to my channel if you are not subscribed yet, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye bye.